by Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Cayman Airways. Call them on 949-2311 to book your nonstop flights to Los Angeles and Panama. And Digicel, Cayman's bigger, better network.
Oh, I think they're doing a great job. A lot of them are.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you?
Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. As we've built this for a long time now, Thoughtful Thursday. And each day, each passing week, the Thursdays become more pensive. Well, we'll invite you not only to stay tuned, to tell your friends to tune in, to make it convenient, whether you're on YouTube or elsewhere in the social sphere, you'll see something that is going to be valuable. You're going to hear, and I'm sure, I'm actually 100% certain that you're going to learn something you didn't know. Want to believe me? Want to test me? Well, go right ahead. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, welcome, and thanks for sharing with us. And as we focus on something that has been built as far Tortuga, I must say at the outset, to be able to welcome someone that I've now been honored to be able to call a friend, to look at him as a young student, to see the remarkable gentleman that he has become. Mr. Badir, if you don't mind me saying publicly, man, you make us very proud, man. How are you?
Yeah, man, I'm great. Thank you very much for that. You know, I've known you for a long time too, right? And we go way back, and
yes,
you've definitely been a big influence in my life, from sports and culture and, you know, everything in between. And I always love running into you and chatting.
Thank you for sharing that. And I say that, you know, why I express my, if it's okay, my love, because I think in our society and in the world today, the one thing that is lacking is love. You know, even amorous love. That's lacking. We've confused it. But agape love, love for ourselves, love for our people, love for history, or heritage, or culture, and the knowledge that in having that love, just like you put love into the meal that you prepare, you may have never had that food before, but if it's prepared lovingly, served lovingly, you're going to enjoy it. Emeril Lagasse says you taste the love. And I think, you know, that word perhaps should be something that we embody. I think, but there, my perspective, you epitomize in your work when you bring it, whether it's a production because someone is looking at real estate and they're selling it and it's being showcased internationally, or you're doing a short story, or even, you know, just recently, we can allude to that, to some of your work that is now becoming internationally acclaimed. Your celebration of drawing alongside Miss Pitcairn, for instance. Mm-hmm. Amazing what is happening and the example you're setting. Thank you. Honestly, thank you. You help us to be inspired. Awesome Productions is just aptly named, man.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Dan.
All right. And thank you, too, for allowing us to be able to have this discussion. We're going to talk about Far Tortuga, but before, as I asked you during the break, brief intro of yourself. I believe, you know, people get caught up in formalities and pomp and circumstance. I have no place for that. But introductions and, you know, accreditation, credibility, and communication are key. So your intro of you as you want us to know you.
Yeah. To introduce myself, my name's Jack Evans. I'm a writer and director from the United States, and I read this novel, Far Tortuga, when I was 13 years old. It's written by one of America's greatest journalists, Peter Matthieson. He came down to Grand Cayman in 1968, and he sailed with a man named Captain Dwayne Ebanks on the Lydia Wilson down to the Mosquito Keys, and came back. He was on assignment for the New Yorker, the magazine. But when he came back, he told the New Yorker editor that all the best bits of his narrative he was going to have to save for something bigger, right? So he wrote a very technical, simple, almost touristic overview of the Cayman Islands for the New Yorker. And what came out years later was this masterpiece of a novel, this sort of mythologized, hyper-present story of a sea voyage where he barely changed the names of each sailor and each location to really tell the story of what it was like to be in the final days of turtling before the turtling was shut down in 1970s. And really takes the reader there in what to me is the most visual novel I've ever read. Years later, I became a filmmaker after a career in journalism myself, a career in conservation, working with other writers like Cormac McCarthy, who we recently lost. We worked together on a screenplay. Then working with American TV stars like Cole Hauser on other co-creations, things like that. It all led me back towards this one novel that I had always seen in my head, right? Yeah. Now, for years, I wondered, how real is this story? Because it was an American journalist coming down, and I always worried, is he making any presuppositions or projecting anything onto this culture? So I started trekking around the Caribbean to find that out. And it's been a beautiful process of connecting what's written in the novel with the true histories of Cayman Islands and the wider Caribbean, right? And it's been so moving to find resonance and validation, because it turns out this novel, fictional though it may be, has so much accuracy about it. It has so much, how to say, it's such an intelligent piece of journalism. It serves almost as an ethnography of those times.
Yeah. Let me ask, and this is where as we were talking initially, it's important to not reinvent nor revise history. The good, the bad, and the ugly, as they would say in that movie that we all enjoy with Clint Eastwood, it needs to be told. It needs to be respected and presented in a way that pays homage to the era, but also for the legacy. So in asking, Badir, this is home for us. We hope and pray that we'll be able to continue to travel safely. What's your take on it? First, did you know about it? And now that you've come to know about it, what's your take on it?
So I had never heard of Our Tortuga, the novel. And since I've met Jack when he came down to start his work on the film, I read his adaptation to the screenplay, and I've since read the novel as well, and I'm just blown away that I had never heard about this. It's a Caymanian story. There's Caymanian people on that boat from West Bay or from all the districts. There's Jamaicans and Hondurans. There's all the archetypes that are here in Cayman that are tied together in this beautiful treasure island kind of novel. And then they're turtling. So turtles play such a big theme in the whole film. So for me, I was just blown away with the authenticity, the obviously deep research that went into that, because there's so much talk of the different things that we know about from the different hurricanes throughout the years, the different ships, the different families on island, the different stories, and the dialogue between, Georgetown is making fun of EastEnders and back and forth, etc. and here it is in this amazing, like Jack said, mythical novel, and it's intense. There's elements of it that are hard to grapple with, but are still real. And I think it's just important for us to be aware of this novel. And I think that when I read it, I was like, I'm on board with this film 100%. I have to be a part of this, and this is part of why I do what I do. And I think I would just love for everybody in Cayman to be aware of Far Tortuga, the novel, and realize that this is our story. This is a story about Caymanians, and I just really recommend everybody to read it, because there's so much work to be done in dialoguing about this story.
Well, I really appreciate, I said this a couple of times already, I lost count how many just in this discussion, your presence here, and it's for a number of reasons. We're going to introduce something that I know many people didn't even know existed. We could probably even delve into some of it to get them to appreciate the history. If I'm not mispronouncing or sort of recalling what you said, you used the word ethnography earlier. Good description. Why that word, and what does that mean to you in respect to this body of work?
Right. So a way to define an ethnography is really an in-depth look trying to categorize and understand, but ultimately relate to a culture different from yours.
Right.
Now, it becomes so interesting, especially in these times, because there's a lot of talk about who should be telling the stories of each place.
Yeah.
Right. There are many people who believe that only people from that place should tell the story. I do believe that there is some value in an outsider looking inward. Now, that puts all the responsibility, like if I'm that outsider in this situation, it puts all the responsibility on me to do the work to remove bias and prejudice and, most of all, assumption, right?
Mm-hmm.
In this case, in adapting this film, the book is so accurate, the story is so based on the true lives that I feel myself to be more of a manager of the actual histories, seeing them into production so as to share them, than I feel like I'm creating anything.
Right.
I don't even... Peter Matthieson, he wrote a fantastic book, but it's based on what he observed.
Yeah.
Who created this story? It's the Caymanian turtlers. It's the Caymanian culture,
Yeah.
right? So I'm here to make sure that our film project is influenced as maximally as possible by the people who really understand and have felt the feelings and have met the turtles and have gone through that history.
There's an African proverb, not until the lion has a biographer, the hunter would always be the hero. So that historical accuracy, even though it's a novel in a sense, there is sufficient validation from the people that are still around and their families. There's another word that you use, that Badir also used, mythical. A novel is intended at times to be something that is an account of something, as opposed to a biography or otherwise. So when we come back from the break, I'm probably the only one that didn't watch it, Pirates of the Caribbean. All right? To what extent that sort of romanticizing, even the teachings that we may have had in school, at least in the Caribbean, about Blackbeard and this one and then the next one, and tie that into this, and then I want to come back into the present day. Can we do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that this is so very different from that, right? I'm very interested in realism and getting the true histories right. On the proverb of the lion, I come from a field of anthropology academically that's called multi-species ethnography, and what it's all about, you could say metaphorically that it's about telling the lion's story.
That's
right?
it.
And that requires empathy, which I think is the journalist's highest skill, right? So I am not a turtler. I'm not Caribbean and nothing close, right? I'm here to try to extend myself, to understand something, a different kind of experience. And this is so educating for me and also for the place and the people that I come from, right?
It's no editorial, it's no opinion, it's just presentation of factual accounts in a way that is perhaps sensitive but also remains accurate.
Very much so.
Okay. That's why I think journalism is the fourth estate, why men who say they're journalists, you have to question. We like to eat. We may call ourselves chefs, but really, have we had the training, the academic as well as the practical? And this is why I think a representation of works like this about a people need to be so significant in the sensitivity, but it's in its accuracy and presentation. I want to talk about that, and maybe, you've seen my passion. Who knows? Stay tuned for Talk Today.
It's a 24-karat summer with Digicel. In honor of our first truly COVID-free summer, Digicel is giving away $24,000. Be one of 10 to win $2,400 this July. For a chance to win, all you have to do is switch to Digicel, activate a Prime bundle, or simply pay your bill on time. It's that easy. It takes 2 minutes to get $2,400 richer. Make the choice to win today and visit a Digicel store near you.
How can you make a classic BLT sandwich even better? Well, by adding tuna. The land meets the sea in Subway's new sandwich, the Tuna BLT, available for a limited time. The Tuna BLT is exploding with flavor. Imagine crispy, juicy bacon strips on top of tuna, fresh lettuce, and slices of tomato, topped with your favorite sauce and choice of freshly baked bread. Enjoy the best of both worlds with the Tuna BLT from Subway. Subway, Eat fresh.
The Water Authority Cayman wishes to advise its valuable customers that the public water service will be temporarily interrupted on Marina Drive from the intersection of Shamrock Road to Almond Avenue, including the side roads of Party Lane and Longmead Close, on Sunday, the 30th of July, from 1:30 a.m. until 5:30 a.m. These planned works are essential as part of the ongoing system maintenance. Motorists are being asked to avoid the area where possible, and for those motorists who cannot avoid the area, all are asked to drive with caution and follow the traffic signs. Water Authority appreciates the patience and understanding of the motoring public as they continue to provide services to all of their valued customers and do apologize for any inconvenience these works may cause.
South Coast Bar and Grill up in Breakers, man, that is the place. For traditional Cayman cuisine, oh, you will love the taste. At South Coast Bar and Grill, we got conch and lobster and turtle stew. And every Sunday, come out with your family for the barbecue.
South Coast Bar and Grill by the seaside, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily, lunch and dinner. Call us at 947-2517.
For Caymanian cuisine, the talk today is South Coast Bar and Grill.
Now, more than ever, supporting your immune system is crucial to helping your body fight off illnesses like the common cold, the flu, and COVID-19. At Valley Med Pharmacy on Walkers Road and in Buttontown, we carry all the essential vitamins and minerals to help support your immune system and improve your overall health. Some of our top immunity support picks are vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, elderberry, and quercetin, or the popular 7-in-1 immunity support. Our pharmacists are always on hand to help guide you and answer any questions. Visit Valley Med Pharmacy on Walkers Road or Buttontown. Live happy, live healthy with Valley Med Pharmacy.
Talk to Dick. But I do have some questions. Talk to Dick.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk to Dick.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And to Badir, are we to Jack Evans as we talk about Far Tortuga, a novel, penned by Peter Matthieson. Now, Jack, as an author, as a journalist, as a strong academic, as you presented, right? Take us back. This novel was initially written when and published when?
It was published in 1975,
right.
And the voyage that inspired it took place in 1968.
And the reason why I ask that is that for many of us, this is 2023. We were born either before 1968 or 1975, but for many of us, we were born after. But even those who were born in that time and prior may have forgotten about this, may be inclined as respectful to want to forget about some of it, right? But it's rich, it's vibrant. It speaks to people with great resilience and resolve, and it should inspire us with respect. So with that in mind, as we watch the you can call it a franchise now, the guy with the mustache and he's swashbuckling around the place, and at some points, but for the mustache, I wouldn't be sure he was a bearded lady in the circus or what. But he's presented as such. He's romanticized it. That Pirates of the Penzance or whatever it's called, and this. Jack, to your perspective.
Yeah, this is definitely a very different kind of story. This is, I would say, overwhelmingly, the theme is about human-animal relationships and what we put into those and what we get back out of them, right? Mm-hmm. My passion for this story comes from the fact that I grew up around subsistence hunters and spent a lot of time working around such people. Mm-hmm. And to see a depiction of these sailing men who are fishing for their bare livelihoods, mm-hmm. right? To see them chatting with such dignity, with such depth of understanding about life, love, other species, such empathy for the world around them, while still being flawed and compromised figures in themselves. That's something that we can really come to respect the people by. I've always wanted to see a film that shows that dignity about the working class, especially those who live in close communion with other species, because that breeds a kind of intelligence that is being lost in cities and in Western culture.
All right. But we're not going to forget about you, so at any point in time, we may ask, but you also please jump in, and particularly when we get to the film and the process of filmmaking and the importance of whether it's an account of a historical event, whether it's a romanticizing of something, whether it's a fictional novel come to life. But Jack, as we speak to you, 1968 and 1975 as those two strike points. Looking at the Cayman history of the turtlers, some was fathers at 10, 11 went to sea with their uncles and their fathers. These were little boys, but who were perhaps more physically and mentally mature than some of the 50 and 60-year-olds that we have today, all right, or maybe 40-some-year-olds. But there was also a rite of passage. There was also a time that not long ago, this was their livelihood, their expectation, their education, and as they applied the high seas, it must have been something that they knew, and it didn't just spring up, as they say, overnight. So in your research and thus far, to what extent the Caymanian seafarer and the Caymanian turtler, that practice that we may have seen in the 20s, 30s, 40s and the like, was that something in your mind that may have been transpiring a century or centuries prior?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is one of the main things I want to honor with this film and show people, is that there's a special kind of knowledge that comes from that embrace of the non-human world. Out on that seascape, you learn a kind of ingenuity, that you can't get elsewhere. And every day you spend in the wilderness, you see something that you've never seen before, right? Staying in that conversation across species boundaries is something that grows you up real quick, and you bring it back home and you apply it to every relationship in your life. I'm always in all my work trying to nudge people towards an embrace of that, because it breeds courage out of necessity.
Indeed.
Right. And, I've had a few conversations with Caymanians about this. I was talking with Ray Banker, whom I know you know, the other day, and we were talking about what it might mean to be Caymanian. Unlike a lot of other national cultures, that might come with even stereotypes, Caymanians have always gone to sea. They've always interacted with a wide world beyond them. For a very small island, it's far-reaching. I've heard tales about people who went to Tokyo before they went to East End, right?
Yeah.
So that breeds a kind of a different kind of culture point. And maybe, what's been put forward is maybe the culture point of a Caymanian is this kind of intelligence and ingenuity and resilience and adaptability to anything that's going on. You see that in the characters of this book. These characters, they don't know how to read or write. And I want to show people that doesn't mean that they're lacking anything in intelligence or adaptability or morality or anything like that. It's a noble way to live, I believe, in interaction with a wider world.
And Jack, sometimes, as you said earlier, that sort of foreign perspective, that foreign voice looking within, is probably what a society needs. The scripture over there says, a prophet is not without honor, save his own country. Sometimes we don't respect, value, and appreciate what we have, because we see it, we become accustomed. We know that person's grandfather's grandmother, aunt, uncle, cousin, sister, daughter, whose dog swapped it. And we hold that for generations, right? So in saying that, as you shared, Tokyo, before they went to East End, been around the world 1,000 times, never been to the back. Mr. Lochter reminds us, right, of, Mr. Parsons, as he's in, the Japanese harbor, doing what today would be akin to the SEALs, clearing the mines of, in the harbor so the ships can come in. This is during World War II, when few had the courage or the ability, and here's a Caymanian, serving its adopted country to promote democracy. So, but there with that in play, what do we need to do, and how much more can we do to make our people see the richness of our history, the value of our people to its global contribution? Statistically, we've served in, from what I understand, more per capita in wars than in any other nation, and yet we're 500 people.
Yeah, it's a good question, and I think what this novel and story has taught me is that we tend to, because I was born after this book was written, and the characters do experience as they're on this trip, they're talking about the transition from old Cayman to new Cayman.
Yes.
They're already seeing it happen, and for them it's an existential thing that they're dealing with. So I didn't deal with it. I came into the quote unquote new Cayman.
Yeah.
Right. And I think when you're born into the new Cayman, you tend to want to disregard the past as sort of not relevant. But what this novel has taught me is that actually looking backwards, in a sense, has helped me look forward.
Yes.
And that there's actually more to our past than we realize. There is buried treasure, literally and metaphorically, in our grounds, in our oceans, in our lands, and that we will be best served and better served to look for that and to explore that. And that's something that this novel taught me, because I didn't know that novel existed, and a lot of people who came on do not know that this novel existed. And perhaps that's not the only novel that we don't know doesn't exist, or whatever other hundreds and thousands of stories there may be still waiting for us to learn from and to carry forward into the future.
And this is where I'm hoping that as people listen, that this isn't just about celebrating Cayman, the Caymanians and their history. This is about inviting people to appreciate that we're more alike than we are different, yet we allow ourselves to be divided. And to Badir's comment, Jack, what is it they share? If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there, right? So even though 1968 is, for some of us, I mean, that's an eternity. For some of us, wow, 1968, man, I was 20 years old, man, or I was 2, or whatever the case is. When I asked about the turtlers, and you referenced, Jack, that this practice that we may have heard about from our parents or grandparents of the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s, and even starting to fizzle in the 60s, you I think agreed with me that this is probably something that has been transpiring centuries early. To your mind, is it that we, the Caymanian of today, only see this act of turtling in the 1900s and may not have appreciated that it may have been something in some fashion that may have been 3 or 4 centuries earlier? What would you say to any potential credence to that statement?
Yeah, I've really dove into the long history of turtling, know, and you see, obviously it was practiced by indigenous peoples all over the Caribbean for a long, long time, and it was indigenous peoples who taught European conquistadors and sailors and merchants and explorers how to use turtle to survive on long voyages, because you can keep them alive on deck. Right. So this is a long entangled relationship, and humans and turtles will have co-evolved over the many centuries up to this point. I'm always interested in looking at how multi-species interactions affect each other, and you only have to wander around this island to see all the homage to turtle, to see all the, to see how up until the 70s, almost every able-bodied man would be on trips down in the Mosquito Keys, and every single person was somehow connected to it in terms of their livelihood.
Yeah, and not to be disrespectful, I'm going to make, for me, because I think it's important, when I looked at old maps, it was the Mosquito Coast, right? So I have a good friend, we always get in this discussion, mosquitoes, it's mozzies. And I said, okay, fine, but it's mosquitoes. And not because it's colloquialism, but because the mosquito Indians, right? And it's a real word. But like Barbandu and Barkas and many places, we're forgetting it. The reason why I want to emphasize that, with great deference to you, but to all, is that, as you mentioned, the indigenous peoples of the region that showed in these New World conquerors, maybe we'll get into the impact on their lives and their cultures. But my personal hypothesis is that just like how the Caymanians that we know of today would have gone to the Mosquito Coast and did the turtling, that's a practice that they learned centuries earlier from people from that part that came to Cayman. And like the huts that we did over the Mosquito Keys, over the waters, they did that here. The 6 months, 3 months, 6 weeks that we did over there, they did that here because of the abundance, right? And Cayman was in the 1800s, 1900s, the reverse of what was being transpiring on that part of the Caribbean. As a consequence, again, just a personal hypothesis, the settlements, the population, ebb and flow in the Cayman Islands, long before it may be recorded in the English history, perhaps the works of the other nations, the European nations, the Dutch, the French, may have some of the things. Again, in your research, are we in Cayman oblivious, insensitive, or totally unaware of some of that recorded history, so that if we were to find it, it may paint a much more in-depth history of our country and see that it goes back even centuries prior to what is already published?
In terms of what is known locally, I think that's a question for a Caymanian.
No, it is, and we'll get that debate. But from your perspective, what do you think?
I haven't quite gotten into those conversations with locals so much. It seems like the turtling industry, it's only 2 generations away, right? So many people have grandmothers and grandfathers who were tied to it somehow, right? The long legacy of it does show up, though. I mean, you find the artifacts and the monuments to how big it was. One of my favorite little things I've found around here is in spending time with Ray Banker at the National Museum. He pulled out a board game called Cayman Turtle Schooner or something like this, and you were playing as the intergenerational sea captains and their schooners, and it was such a central culture piece that it became an exciting game for kids to aspire to. So they were heroes of this place, right? Yeah. And I certainly want to make a cultural monument, to those lifestyles. Now, my interest in it is more about the story form, and my hope is that the reason I come here to Cayman Islands is to allow people of this culture to influence and correct this story everywhere where it might be awry, because I firmly believe that the truer story is always the better story.
Yeah, ethnography. You met Ray Banker. I think that's one person everybody should know. He's over at the museum, an incredible resource. So you met him just recently? At the museum?
Months ago, actually. I was here in February, and next thing I know, his parents were cooking turtle stew for me.
How did you find that?
The aftertaste is something I've never encountered in my life. It's distinctly reptilian, But I'd do it again.
You do it again?
Yeah.
You lie.
No, let's cook some up.
Well, and the reason, thank you for sharing that, because part of the thing, foods are, to me, a way to experience culture. Have you had other foods, or I don't want to call them exotic, because turtle isn't exotic, but have you had other particular foods? Or
hanging around these islands, it's been fascinating, because I just get taken around to see the lifeway from the ground up, and you do have to do a bit of digging, right? Because I understand with the Hurricane Ivan and everything, a lot of the old structures and places are changed, right? But I love doing this digging, and it's become a situation where everything on this island is fascinating to me, because it connects back to this story that I love and that I'm so invested in personally. Cool. So we're always welcoming that kind of help.
Well, we have a quick break to take. When we come back, we'll continue talking about Far Tortuga. We invite our listeners to call and share, to listen and to learn. Who knows, you might even laugh. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
They say variety is the spice of life. And that's why at Subway, we're introducing the new Boneless Hot Sub. Say what? The premium sub brings new ingredients like spicy breaded boneless chicken, French's crispy fried onions, and buffalo wing sauce, bringing a zesty and flavorful experience with every bite. Add some of your favorite veggies, cheese, and ranch sauce of your choice of freshly baked bread for the ultimate boneless hot sub. For a little spice in your life, try the new boneless hot sub from Subway.
So good and tasty.
And make it a meal with a drink and chips or cookies. Subway. Eat fresh.
CUC Advisory. Customers are advised of a scheduled outage on Sunday, July 30th between 7 a.m. and 12 noon for Centennial Towers, Heritage Square, and all of Boggy Sand Road in West Bay. For more information, please contact CUC's customer service team at 949-5200 or email service@cuc.ky.
You know, as a little girl, I dreamt of traveling to faraway places and foreign lands. I tell you what though, no more dreaming. This summer, I going flying with Cayman Airways. How blessed are we in the Cayman Islands to have a very own national airline? Girl, you can fly to so many international destinations without the hassle of connecting flights. On top of Jamaica, Cuba, and Honduras, you got non-stop flights from Cayman to New York, Miami, Tampa, and even Denver, Los Angeles, and now Panama. Going to be a little cafe con leche and Hollywood Squares for this old gal this summer.
Make your travel dreams come true with Cayman Airways, offering non-stop flights for non-stop adventures in Panama, LA, and many more places in between. For details and to book, call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
The best foundation you can wear is glowing, healthy skin. The offices of dermatologist Dr. Wayne Porter specialize in enhancing your skin's well-being. Whether you're seeking advanced skincare, including any skin cancers, Botox, filler, cosmetic skin enhancements, or simply looking to reduce wrinkles, Dr. Porter offers a full-service dermatology and dermatological surgery practice. For more information, email drportercayman@gmail.com or call 946-9020. That is 946-9020.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And I have the distinct pleasure of being able to sit in the company of Mr. Badir Awi. Yes, I said Mr. And you, like many, Badir, I'll share with you this morning. I'm increasingly inclined to share, with their permission, conversations with people. I had a great fellowship and breakfast with a remarkable, he should accept me calling young Caymanian because I'm young too, all right? Two contemporaries, interested in the future and the betterment of our people, and to come away inspired and nurtured and encouraged. And as I sit across the table from you, not just because we're talking about Far Tortuga and respect for our history, but because we're looking at something and asking ourselves, hey, what can we do more? So as we talk about that, let's go to the phones and welcome this caller. We're speaking about Far Tortuga, a novel by Peter Matthieson, soon to be, a big screen, sort of production. But we'll tell you more. Let's take this call. Welcome. Good afternoon.
Yeah, I was listening and I didn't understand exactly what you all were talking about until you just said you're talking about the book Far Tortuga.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. You say there's going to be a film made about that?
Well, let the people answer. Badir?
Yes, that's correct. That's what we're talking about. So we're here with, I'm a producer from Cayman. I'm here with the director, Jack Evans, from the U.S., who is directing the film Far Tortuga.
What, is it being shot here in Cayman?
So that's exactly what we're working on putting together. We've been scouting out in Belize because, of course, most of the story takes place on the Mosquito Keys of Nicaragua. Belize is a safer stand-in, but we're trying to bring this production here, so we're looking for investment and support from various institutions in order to make this film more Caymanian across the board. We want to make sure that there's plenty of Caymanian influence on the telling of a story that's so important to this local culture.
Yeah, well, I think in the great scheme of things, I think that Cayman actually probably played a greater role in it than, even though a lot of the activity was out along the Central American coast, but Cayman was the more or less the kind of center of all that activity.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I agree with you entirely. Of course, we're shooting the film. We need to be down on the location that looks like the Keys, so we're looking for that over in Belize. But this story is overwhelmingly Caymanian. I would dare say that it's a big part of the national mythos and, a definitive culture point of everything that went on here before the 1970s when the turtling ended.
Well, have you tapped into any of the? I'm sure there's still a few guys around that could jump in the catboat and take you right out to the Serranos or take you out to what were some of those other keys out there in quick time.
Yeah, I
just spoke with one half an hour ago.
Yeah, I'm looking for exactly those folk over the days that I've spent here. I've already met with some of the people who grew up turtling, and it's really beautiful to chat with folks who spent their early years, some from the age of 12, down on those keys, living that harsh existence, because those days, of course, were formative for them. They were some of the most important days in their lives. And it's been such a long time that it's not been possible to go turtling in the same way. But I understand there's a few folk who still have licenses grandfathered in, and people who still, there's obviously a big boat culture here, and that's a great preservation point for this heritage. We're looking to involve all those people in the filmmaking process.
Well, Okay, I think the question was asked somewhere along when I first tuned in here. How can we make the Caymanian public more aware of this rich history? And I would suggest that there be a more concerted effort in airing all of this history that much of it is still between a lot of people's ears, and once they laid out facing the east, it's lost.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think making a feature film about this, a film that's thrilling as well as beautiful as well as educational, is one of the best ways. It's one of the biggest creative rituals anybody can put together, is bringing hundreds of people together on a film set to get them working on this heritage. I often tell a short anecdote about a Canadian filmmaker I really admire named Zacharias Kunuk, who is an Inuit fellow who went making films about his culture's old history and their mythology. Obviously, they are often misrepresented by people in cities, and people of Western culture. He started making films about their culture, and in order to do that, they literally had to find the last old woman in the village who knew how to stitch a caribou parka, or some of the elders who still retain the old language. And in the making of these historically accurate films, young people got involved in learning the old ways, the old rituals, the old language, the old dialect, and he's credited with preserving a lot of that. I think that's something that this film could bring to the Cayman Islands, because to put it most simply, there's no better way to make the history cool than to make a film about it for young people. And I hope it can create a sort of longing for that beautiful ancestry that Caymanians have in young people, so they can begin to honor it in their own way.
Yeah, well, I think there's still lots of indigenous knowledge here within the Caymanian community that would be a rich element for whatever the outcome that you're looking for, and I hope that you will tap into it.
Yeah, I will. We all will.
And I'm interested in the caller. Like, could you tell us a little your background? Have you read the book, and what's your opinion about it?
Well, I've been aware of Far Tortuga for a long time. In fact, about 2 or 3 years ago, one of my cousins gave me a copy of it, and I lost it. And I recently found it, but I was been aware of it for a long time, and I think it's a great. It's a great foundation to start with, mm-hmm. And if you're able to weave mm-hmm. a good element of Caymanianism, if you want to put it that way, into it, I think you will come up with a great production.
Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Ebanks, thank you, sir. I know you realize our immense love and respect for you. We do have the news. Let Susan know if you want to continue or not, but we'll just pause, and when we return, we'll continue the discussion for as long as our guests are able to share the time with us. So stay tuned.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom. Today's biggest news.
The Headline News is brought to you by Health Services Authority.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. Butterfield Cayman announces that in step with the recent increase in the U.S. federal funds rate, Butterfield is adjusting its prime rate for U.S. NCI dollar lending for residential mortgages, consumer loans, and corporate loans. The U.S. NCI dollar prime rates will increase by 0.25% to 8.50% effective August 25th, 2023. In international news, an Arizona girl who disappeared nearly 4 years ago has turned up at a police station in Montana. Thousands of tips have come in to the FBI and the Center for Missing and Exploited Children since Alicia Navarro allegedly ran away in 2019. When Alicia vanished from home on September 15, 2019, the then 14-year-old left behind a signed note that read, "I ran away, I will be back, I swear, I'm sorry." But her mother told CBS News, the BBC's U.S. partner, that she believed her daughter had been lured away by somebody she met online. The House of Representatives convened a landmark panel on unidentified anomalous phenomenon, known more colloquially as UFOs, on Wednesday, and the most serious acknowledgement yet that mysterious sightings deserve scrutiny at the highest levels of government. 3 witnesses shared their encounters with objects that defied physics and told of pilots afraid to speak up, biological material recovered from crafts, and alleged retaliation against whistleblowers. All acknowledged that anomalous phenomena were a potential national security threat. The hearing produced no serious bombshells, nor a confirmation of alien life, but the fact that the witnesses received a major hearing before Congress was notable in and of itself. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Zollins.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom. Today's biggest news.
The headline news is brought to you by Health Services Authority.
It's one of the best moments of your life when you welcome your baby into the world. The HSA's experienced women's health and maternity team provides the highest quality of care throughout your pregnancy and delivery. As a JCI accredited hospital, we are the leader in maternal care, safely delivering over 700 babies annually. Visit hsa.ky for more information. At HSA, we are committed to caring for you.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of District Administration and Lands. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Captain Charles Gerald Kirkconnell, 1891 to 1961. Charles Gerald Kirkconnell was born and raised on Cayman Brac. He was married to Olivine Elizabeth Eden of Grand Cayman, and the couple had 3 children. Captain Charlie was one of the founding brothers of the shipping and merchandising firm of R.B. Kirkconnell and Brothers Limited. Many Caymanian seamen were trained on Kirk vessels and later worked for national bulk carriers. Captain Charlie was also a shipbuilder who built the largest ship ever to be built in the Cayman Islands, the M.V. Kirksons. He and the late Bertie Foster were instrumental in helping to build the airport on Cayman Brac, which they both helped to finance. The clearing of the airstrip was done entirely by hand. Captain Charlie financed most of the houses that were built by seamen employed by MBC, as there was no bank on the Brac. He served as a vestryman for the Sister Islands in the Assembly of Justices and Vestry. Captain Charles Gerald Kirkconnell.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of District Administration and Lands. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And as we're talking about, for Tortuga, excellent company of, Badir, awesome productions, and Jack Evans. But we do have what I think is not just a very inspiring and instructive voice on the other end, who's been gracious with the time. Mr. Loxley, thanks for holding on, sir.
Yeah, well, I wonder, are your guests familiar with the new book that came online just a couple of weeks ago, the Turtlers and Catboat book?
Yeah, the one put together by Jairus Miller. I just picked up a copy of it yesterday from the Seafarers Society and been flipping through it. It's got photos in it that I've never seen before. I did quite a bit of mining through the National Archives, but I might have missed them. And it's a real resource for us because we're trying to understand every angle of this. We want in our film every knot of every bit of rigging on the ship that we're building to mirror the Lydia Wilson, to be correct and to be critiqued by the people who remember that knowledge.
Well, you're building a model of the Wilson.
It'll be necessary, yeah.
In Cayman?
I'm not sure exactly where we're going to build it. We're looking for wooden schooners to retrofit around here. Looked all over the world so far, looking in Belize. So if anybody knows of a wooden schooner of about 40 feet or more, just give us a call.
Well, I think you're in for a great search. But anyway,
it's an adventure.
You're kind, sir.
But yeah, we're looking for all these things in Cayman. I mean, Jack talks often about his trips to LA, where the producers over there are trying to convince him to do it cheaply in LA on a green screen in a water tank over there, and Jack's like, no, he really wants to be authentic and on location, and so that's part of why I've joined forces with him, because I really want to integrate him here in Cayman and just connect as many dots as we can to find as many resources as we can. Film needs a lot of resources, from actors to crew to all the props and the sets, and we do need the expertise of these turtlemen to be able to help make this as authentic as possible. So to anyone listening who feel they can contribute or wants to learn in whatever capacity, please contact us. We really want to bring this film home to Cayman as much as possible.
Yeah, you can contact us by going to our studio's website. That's www.anotherworldentire.com. Our Instagram handle is the same, Another World Entire, and we can be reached that way, or maybe on this small island you already know Badir. And
everybody knows Badir. He's the second other person everybody needs to know.
It seems like it. We couldn't be doing any of this without him.
No, he's a great guy. Anything else, Mr. Loxley, sir?
Oh, well, I was just, I think there's a wealth of knowledge, as I said before, still here in the community that would make a great contribution to a film. I think with using the Fire Tortuga as a sort of base, if you're, if the object is to tell the story of the Cayman turtler, or is it to tell the story of the Dry Tortuga novel?
It's a good question. I think both are overlapping. What I love about this novel in particular, Peter Matthieson was such a keen journalist that he kept the accuracy high, but he also gave, as you know, a sort of fictional, mythical, fable-like twist on the end. So some of the more extreme elements of the book, he made that up, but I can understand why. It's because data can only go so far in changing people's minds, right? A documentary film, a history report, nonfiction books, they can change our minds, and that's vital. But it's usually story that really changes people's hearts. And this is why I've gotten involved in the fiction world after a long career in nonfiction work, because I want to immerse people in the emotional consequences and inspirations of being out on that seascape. And that's what Matthieson did so well. We're bringing a story to a global audience, from Europe to the US to Australia, and it'll be translated into other languages. We're bringing a story that nobody's really seen before. I haven't seen many films about the historical Caribbean that aren't either entirely Eurocentric or that are really raw and real about the true experience. This is a chance to make something that will tell the world what goes on here, because when I talk to Americans about the Cayman Islands, they have
you already know what they think.
Yeah. The unfortunate assumption that it has to do with some kind of banking intrigue and otherwise that it's a very beautiful place where cruise ships dock. This place is so much more interesting and important to the natural heritage of humanity, so this is a film that can carry that far beyond and really generate a new interest in this place, as it deserves.
And maybe you'll have to make it a point to invite former President Barack Obama to the premiere.
I'll send him an email. I'll try.
You know what his thoughts were of Cayman.
Yeah, I remember seeing that video of him in front of the
Ugland building,
or talking about the Ugland building. Just to find out him making his opinion about
he's just as misinformed as he's been misguided and misled. But anyway, he's mischievous in his meddling. So.
Ooh, what did he say?
Nothing of any amusing.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
Yeah. I'll send you the link.
Okay, Mr. Loxley, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Should make for a great story if you get enough of the Caymanian element in it.
Yes.
That'll be our goal. Thanks for your insight and for your interest. It's always good to talk to folks who care about this kind of thing.
Yeah. All right. Talk to you very soon, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. And through Mr. Locke's then with him, perhaps an invitation to others to join alongside. Because as we talk to this isn't just about one work. This is about a work that is indicative and representative of a people and a history that perhaps isn't respected, isn't understood, but there maybe through you help me till I say it properly. Perhaps sometimes when we present it today, whether it's in our schools through educators, in our homes through our parents, just even in our casual conversations, we're somehow dismissive and disrespectful. And these are just a bunch of men, to see. Have you gone fishing for any length of time and just that toll on the body? When you come back to shore, you still feel like you're rocking. So you weren't just getting your sea legs, but this wasn't a way to provide food on the table. This wasn't just a rite of passage, as significant as that is. This is about something that our people need to understand. Maybe I'm just too much a lover of my people to appreciate when others discard and disrespect.
No, I think you're right. A lot of us complain we gotta get up 9 o'clock in the morning to go to work, right? But when you look at what these guys had to do to go to work, I mean, that's just, that's a different ball game to go out on the open ocean, on a sailing ship, and to go against the weather conditions and very often to lose friends and family out there on the sea. And, that's a different ball game, and we definitely need to pay a lot more attention to that and pay homage to that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, those emotional currents run through the novel. There's a whole passage of the novel and the film where a survivor of the Majestic shipwreck sort of has a coming to terms with his own survivor's guilt, and that's a real legacy piece of the ancestral experience of Cayman Islands. And if you imagine just beginning with the rite of passage of going out to the Keys when you might be 12 years old, and begin imagining how thirsty and hot and salt scarred everything would have been, and the grimy work of hauling up turtles, and to come home, sell that catch, and pay off your family's debts and go right back out there, it's something that will get that activity and that relationship with that seascape all the way into your blood and into your bones, right? It kind of becomes your everything as a worldly experience, and it's sort of the finest teacher. Yes. Carrying on those teachings that's something that does need preservation. There have been history books written about it. There are transcripts. There's some fascinating transcripts in the National Archives that carry these stories forward. But we're talking about a reenactment, which is as close as you can get to going back there.
Yeah, we want to talk about the film-making process and the idea of a reenactment instead of a depiction and the like. But first, as we're speaking to, Badir, Awesome Productions, we're talking about Tortuga, we have Jack Evans with us. Can I read with you? I'll even endeavor to do so without putting on, to be respectful. Right? It says, good afternoon, sir. Please feel free to mention, and I certainly wasn't paid to do so, Caymanian Epics, which was published in November 2021. Caymanian turtling is a central topic in the book. Captain Dwayne Ebanks is also mentioned, as well as the schooner, the Lady Wilson. This is from Dr. Curtis Barnett. He said he also wrote an article or review about the Mathieson's of Tortuga, which was published in the Nor'wester in little over 40 years ago. And I'll ask, and hopefully the message will go through Dr. Barnett's permission to share his details with Badir, because another invaluable resource. Jack, I read that as is, and I read it publicly for a couple of reasons. In listening to what you just shared, not to you specifically, but just generally the collective, general you. Many of us have ulterior motives and agendas. We exercise because you want to be healthy, because you want to catch the eye of, the fine gentleman across the street. We publish something because we want to be recognized and rewarded for it. We star in a film, hopefully to be nominated to get the Emmy or the Oscar, or whatever it is, right? People study hard because they want to A in the exam. People have ulterior motives, and that's what it is. But in this, perhaps the collective ulterior motive could be, as a people, we come alongside and ensure the accuracy and authenticity. And to say that in the film process, you want to create something that is as close to what transpired as opposed to a fictionalized account of something that is romanticized, that may be reinterpreted and represented in a way that, take what I used to tell my students, the American president Ulysses Grant, not Ulysses, history recorded him as probably one of the worst presidents, Obama aside, but now, right, he's going to probably be represented as somebody great. We do that with so much, right? History shall be kind to, for I shall read it myself, said one fellow.
Mm-hmm.
But when is honesty, integrity, truth, and ethics important? You want it to be that in this, Jack, I gather. You want it authenticity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, and it's nice to hear from Dr. Barnett as well. I've come across that book there at Seafarers, and I think we received a message from him via one of my colleagues at the Peter Matthieson Center, and that's a good bit of news that I'd love to let people know about. Peter Matthieson, the original author of this book, passed away almost 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But his family and his friends run a sort of legacy foundation to support some of his greatest passions in life, including journalism, literature, and also Zen Buddhism. He was a Zen monk, among other things, and that highly influenced his writing form in Far Tortuga in an interesting way. But the Peter Matthieson Center is now in support of this project, which is wonderful because it goes to show that the story's heritage and by connection, every individual and every culture that it touched can be handled by, I would consider, the right inheritors of it, which are the Caymanian people and the people related to the man who penned the book, And it's kind of trying to, a reenactment like this gets interesting because you're dragging forward the true characters of the past to where they will meet with the reenactment, and does that not make it something more of a continuation?
Yeah. So with that in mind, the cast, you still... Again, guide me. I'm gathering in the formative stages. I don't know a lot about filmmaking. I read a book about making film, and there seems to be all sorts of moving parts. You need money, you need a space and a place, you need people, you need a camera, you need all the things. Then when it's done, you need the production and the post-production and the editing. Then you need the marketing, and then you need the audience to come.
Sounds like you know.
Is that what it is?
It sounds like
that's everything. No. I forgot the most important part. Craft services. You need that as well.
Everything depends on craft services.
Yeah, there you go. If you don't know what that means in the film industry, call Badir. He may ask you to volunteer. Say yes if he does. No, but there's a lot of things that go on in it, right? Yeah. So let's start with casting. I'm looking for the lead role. Okay, I'm not. Well, where are we?
Well, so last year we went and made a short film in Belize. That was more. It's an original story that I wrote inspired by Belizean culture.
Yeah.
It was our first step towards Far Tortuga. It was not meant to be a Caymanian story because I had not been here
Okay,
yet.
that's good, B.
Yeah. So we started working away on that in Belize, and we had two young actors from New York, and the rest of the actors were all Belizean. And put them together, and it was really interesting to see them play off each other because of course the Belizeans are the ones that bring the true culture and the accent. We wanted to mix them with outsiders so that they could educate each other, you know. So what we look forward to is casting a mix of people, amateurs, sailors, professionals. We're, of course, looking for A-list cast members that we'll be approaching over the next few months as our fundraising continues in order to make sure that this film can be seen by the wider world because, of course, they attract some star power as well as their skill. Yeah. So we're looking into that, but one thing I want to mention on this radio show is that we're interested in any young and up-and-coming talent, any enthusiastic crew, cast, critics of this story to track us down and come meet with us, where we would embrace with open arms that kind of support and interest in this story. So we'll actually be meeting at Luigi's at 9:30 tomorrow afternoon.
Tomorrow's Friday? Okay.
Yes. Okay. So at 9:30 on Friday, Badir and myself will be around gathering with some of the people that we've met along this path.
Cayman Cabana?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, yeah. So about 9:30 p.m. we'll be gathering there to discuss this project. Some of the crew will be there to meet Jack, and definitely we want to meet whoever is interested in being a part of the project, and actors as well.
I know there's other things on, but here are 2 good events. We can go to the session for the Miss Universe Cayman, and then come down to Cabana with you guys, and just keep the party going.
Yeah, man. Let's bring the Miss Cayman contestants over, man.
Miss Tyson, there you go.
Caitlin,
all are welcome.
and I appreciate that. And as I listen to you, I'm going to make sure I don't miss any of my messages. I'll check them during the break because I don't want to seem disrespectful, inattentive as much as I believe that people believe that you can multitask. Nah, pay attention to what you're doing. If you don't, stir the pot when you have to, it just might stick.
The focus.
With that, though, we recognize, for those who don't, maybe there'll be now actually come to knowledge, there's a strong Cayman Belize connection.
Indeed.
Okay, my father's uncle, on his father's side, was a captain of a famous vessel here, and I remember shortly before we went down, going on board and having supper, and I always wondered, did I cause that to happen? I don't know. I remember walking from the dock to the gangplank into the ship, and being afraid, and my youngest brother's like, come on man, back and forth, and I'm like, no. And it's rough seas and it's wobbling, thing is probably 18 inches wide, but I said it to say that seafaring heritage, that connection, perhaps the Cayman Belize and the wider Caribbean could be something, if it's not improper, the authenticity. You watch some movies and you hear a fella trying to do an African accent, and like, guy, where are you from? Just talk the way you are. How important it is to have a person trying to speak Caymanian, or having that person speak the way they speak from where they are, and just portraying, there's some actors who are good and they try an Irish accent and it's horrible.
Yeah, it's vital in my opinion, because that takes me right out of any story I see.
Exactly.
It's abrasive. I come from down south and in the United States, and I can spot a bad southern accent, and I have to turn the movie off, right? So it's personal to anybody who cares about it, who speaks that way themselves. So that's something we're going to invest a lot of time in. You might meet some of our actors around this island once we get the production up and running, because they're going to have to be soaking up the accent until it's perfect.
If I may, a true Badir, Rankin, so Jordan, he was on the chef show the other day, and we watched him. I felt great. Here's a gifted guy who's in the kitchen, and he was eloquent. His elocution was great. He spoke. There was no question of his pride in his ability, but he stood out. And it doesn't matter if you're a Caymanian from extraction and you happen to have a particular relation with your things, but at the end of the day, you're you, right? But there you're probably as, if not more so, intelligent than many, a filmmaker and otherwise, and yet you represent who you are. I just say Belize, just realize.
There's a Belize connector.
I sit up without even thinking about it.
Right.
But in saying that we represent who we are, speaking how we are, ensuring that we communicate effectively and comprehensively, is that something that we can ensure that in any production like this, that there's a fair representation, but the guy isn't from somewhere trying to talk like me. I only talk like me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating, because like Jack's saying, when you hear, a Caribbean accent on the television or on a film, and that it sounds off, it really does throw you off. So it's going to be fascinating to see how we tackle. We haven't really gotten that far so far with between Jack and I in Cayman, but eventually we're going to have to really get there and see. How do we really make the sound Caymanian? And it's not as simple, I don't think, as how do we sound today, because this was 50 years ago that this story took place. So then the question becomes, has the accent changed in the last 50 years, right? And then how has it changed? And then so, maybe it's not just as simple as the characters talking how we talk today. We got to think about how they talked back then. So it's very complicated. I'm sure there's a bit to it, and I look forward to sort of just researching that and really figuring that out, so that we can have the actors immerse themselves and really just sound authentic.
But this is why perhaps tomorrow evening, for many of us, maybe it's out of curiosity. We just want to know what's transpiring. Maybe we have an interest. Tomorrow, Cabana, 9:30 p.m. Come down and get an insight and the like.
Yeah.
Please do.
We'll need Caymanians on our boat. We'll need them in our cast in order to educate any outsiders that we might cast or hire as to how it's done properly.
And I respect the endeavor to want to perhaps have a replica of a vessel. I remember long ago, I've said this a couple of times, and hopefully one day someone will remember it. As much as I prefer to read, it is my passion, I love it, over an audio or a video. There was one day, I was trying to distract myself and channel surfing, and there was this vessel, this schooner, and it was just in the high seas. And what caught my eye was the flag, and then the bottom it says Georgetown, one word, comma, CI. And so it was just a fill-in shot, but it was a vessel without question. Or it was an old film, just by the greening of it. But I didn't have DVR, and by the time I went back, where was that channel? And I've seen it, and I know that is a vessel because it's in my. The way I say that is that we know there are a few out there that are very few that are Caymanian vessels. There's an attempt to bring back something that isn't a Caymanian vessel, but it still had Caymanian connection. If you're not able, because of cost or availability, to recreate a replica, what would you do?
I wouldn't do this film without doing it in the real way. My passion here, coming from my background of writing and journalism, I want to make something that's uniquely and originally real and on location, right? So our way of thinking about it, our method, is to run the expedition as it was and film it almost like a documentary. Although it's all acted and scripted, we want to relive it, because I've seen a few films that do that, and they just glow with authenticity and intrigue, and they make you want to go to that place. I'm thinking a lot of the films of Werner Herzog, a German fellow who pioneered that method, and it made some of my favorite films because they showed me the world when I was young. They made me want to go places. I'm still working on going to all the places that movies like that taught me about.
Yeah, I did it through books, and this very descriptive, narrative reminds me of Marlene Jacks, the late Marlene Jacks. When she wrote, it almost was like a travel journal in a sense that she described it. Not unlike Ludlum when he would describe the streets of Europe. Some of the words I couldn't say, right? But I could recognize them from the map. And when he was down some street in Paris or whichever, you got to see it with such vivid imagery, and that's important. So when we come back, could we ask about the film process, potential budget? You're going to create a replica. Any idea, is that a $10,000 boat or a $10 million boat? And so, but there your point to a green screen and a bathtub, and then go back to the pirates. What was that vessel? Was that just something that, and so people can get an appreciation as to what is involved? Would that be okay?
That would be great.
All right, there is not going to be an exam, trust me. It's something good to talk about with your children. Please stay tuned and join us after the break.
Hey, is your phone slow, overheating, and dropping important calls? Don't fret. This summer, it's time to flip out with Digicel. Introducing the all-new Samsung Flip 4 with its sleek design and cutting-edge features. You'll flip into the summer in style and confidence. This summer, you can grab the all-new Samsung Flip 4, all just for $145. Flip into the summer with Digicel. Visit a Digicel store near you and grab the all-new Samsung Flip 4 and the amazing 7-day Prime Ultra Plan today.
Explore your history. Explore your land. Explore your sister islands. The ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom. The land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your sister islands.
Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
What exactly are the steps in the STEPS 2023 National Health Survey? Step 1 is a questionnaire where you'll be asked about your health behaviors and lifestyle choices. Step 2 involves home measurements like height, weight, and blood pressure. Lastly, Step 3 is a finger prick blood sample for cholesterol and glucose. STEPS 2023 starts on June 3rd. Learn more by logging on to www.gov.ky/steps.
You know, as a little girl, I dreamt of traveling to faraway places and foreign lands. I tell you what though, no more dreaming. This summer, I going flying with Cayman Airways. How blessed are we in the Cayman Islands to have a very own national airline? Girl, you can fly to so many international destinations without the hassle of connecting flights. On top of Jamaica, Cuba, and Honduras, you got non-stop flights from Cayman to New York, Miami, Tampa, and even Denver, Los Angeles, and now Panama. Going to be a little cafe con leche and Hollywood Squares for this old gal this summer.
Make your travel dreams come true with Cayman Airways, offering non-stop flights for non-stop adventures in Panama, LA, and many more places in between. For details and to book, call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And as we look at Far Tortuga, Jack Evans, but there are we, it's not just about a film production. As I listen to you, this is not even sort of a presentation, a reenactment, I think you said, of a historical event, somewhat fictionalized in a novel, but from what I gather from what you shared, almost accurately reflective of what may have been transpiring. Am I exaggerating? Did I misunderstand you, or is it a fair representation?
Yeah. I think to clarify it even further, it's a fable-like story. It's a sort of mythically inspired thriller, right? That's set entirely within an authentic life world of what the Caymanian turtler would have experienced.
Yeah.
But to be clear, the characters in the story are not representatives of actual people. They're fictionalized, so their words and behaviors and actions are invented. However, it's inspired by a deep, rich understanding of what their days might have been like. So in this way, I think it becomes extra valuable because the younger generation will be entertained, which is critical in learning history. I love history, but I'm not going to read a dry history book. I believe it's the artist's task to make things as exciting as they truly are and to represent them in a thrilling way with accuracy.
But history isn't dry, isn't boring.
It's not.
I mean, you look at a historical account, even if it's just a photograph of the photojournalist during a particular war or something, right? Just look at it. Black and white photo, you can see the emotion on the people. You can see the grime on their skin. You can see the horror in their eyes. At least I can, but you can see it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting about working with Jack on this is that his approach as a filmmaker is really different from the Hollywood producers, because so many of the movies that we watch nowadays, they're very like over spectacled on green screens, and it's just always, it's kind of a lot of bang in your face, whereas his approach is very much holistic, and being there and putting the actors and the crew through that actual experience that these characters went through, so that you're there suffering on the boat as you're making this film. And I think we're longing for that, and I think just moviegoers I think we're kind of getting tired of what we're seeing on the screen. We're getting tired of what we're seeing on Netflix. It's there's always it's the same old same, and a lot of people are complaining about the quality. And I think this is a good approach, and I really love working with them on it, and to have this approach with it to to sort of to give us the experience of that history, so that it's more emotionally impactful for us.
All right. So we're talking about Far Tortuga, novel by Peter Matthieson. We got Jack Evans and Badir Awi. And I asked, going into the last break, about the film process and the like, and potential budget. I'm not a naval architect, right? My brothers would say, the much times you've been on the board recently, we can't even call you a seafarer, but anyway. So if you were to construct this replica, and for the film itself, what kind of budget are we looking at? I mean, this is a blockbuster $100 million project. I mean, what's this?
Not so much, and this is what I love about it. It's a low budget film, right, by Hollywood standards. That's considered to be $2 million, which is to me an incredible amount of money. but that's what it would take to put all this together. You know, whether we're filming parts of it in Belize, parts of it in Grand Cayman. That's my ideal situation. We'll see where it tracks out based on that budget. But to rebuild the Lydia Wilson, or as it's called in the fictionalized version of the book, the Lilius Eden, to rebuild that would it'll be interesting. We're looking for schooners that we're hoping to retrofit, and it could cost between $50,000 and $80,000 to get it up and running. You know. Yeah. So it's but what I love about this style of filmmaking at this indie budget level, this independent level, is that it becomes the art of everything. Everything matters on screen, right? Every button on the shirt has to be accurate, right? Every line of dialogue needs to roll off the tongue just in the way that it actually would. That's emotionally resonant, right? The lighting is important. I mean, everything that piles into a shot on screen becomes a canvas for us to express our feeling of the story. So it's a wonderful thing to work in. It's thrilling for an artist.
You don't want a gale of force winds, a guy with a bucket throwing water with a fan blowing. You want it to actually look as if it's the impending hurricane.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about finding wind.
Or so you're going to have politicians. Just kidding. No, all jokes. My friends are going, I'm going to invite you in America. The $2 million budget and the 80,000 that you referenced. The 80 is separate or included in the 2 mil?
It's all part of the $2 million budget. So we're down in we're down in Georgetown right now, trying to raise the initial funds. We actually haven't begun the fundraising for this feature in a truly serious packaged way until just recently. So our first stop has been the Cayman Islands, because we're hoping that production support and investment can come from this place so as to tacitly influence the film more. So we're looking to raise $250,000 on island now. And we've got other events scheduled across the world, in the U.S., at film festivals in Europe, things like that.
If it's okay, help us understand. Many of us know that the actors in the film, you know, Angelina Jolie walks away with a lot of money. You know, Harrison Ford. We know they get paid, but the people that put money up to get the film to the screen, so the audience can come and watch, maybe we don't understand how they make money. So that person that comes in and says, "Hey, here's 2 mil. In fact, here's another extra 2 mil." It's not a charitable grant. They can make money. If it's okay, how would they make money? They become the executive producers. Talk to me about that process, please.
It's an investment. This is a business, you know, and it's meant to scale up. Even over the course of multiple films, right? We are in the film business, you know, in a real way. So. So investment in Far Tortuga is exactly that. It's investment, right? And it comes back with shares that come back from ticket sales and acquisition by streaming services, things like that. To speak earlier to what you were talking about, Badir, I'm so confident that making something this original will make it a success. You know, there's no shortage of content, of things to watch, but there is a shortage of things that are done in a unique way. And I know that will be resonant, you know?
Yes.
It's so hard to estimate how many people are going to go to see a movie. Where is it going to get distributed, right? Which streaming service is going to take an interest in it? All these things, like any business, just come down to personal relationships and personal impressions and emotional feelings
politics
about
as
it.
well.
Yeah, as well. It's also a very political business. It's true, but I know that the only way a film reaches any kind of renown is if it's something that's never been seen before.
Yeah.
Right. And you have to have the courage to go do that. You have to take incredible risks to do something like that. You have to explain yourself constantly from the ground up by definition, because it hasn't been done before. But that's what we're working with, and this film will be something that no one's ever seen. The likes of it are very unique and original.
Right. And just going on what has been stated publicly, we've seen big budget film that presumably, according to published accounts, flops. You know, $1 billion for this project that made zilch. Or we've seen some examples of what's the one with the woods or whatever it is, you know,
Blair Witch Project.
Is that see that see, you know, for $5 and they made 50 million, whatever it is, right? So we've seen increase in those types of examples becoming almost the norm as opposed to the anomaly. So this potential could be.
What unites those success stories is how far out and original they are.
Yeah.
A recent one I can think of is a horror film called The Witch, right? A strange movie that it's a
You're being kind.
Yeah. It's a historical period piece, you know,
Yes.
with some funky New England accents that nobody can remember, you know, exactly how they're said, with very detailed costuming and an odd cryptic theme, right? That was made for about, I think, a little bit more money than we're intending to spend on for Tortuga, and became a huge success and tens of millions of dollars. But it's because it flew in the face of all the genre expectations, and you find a younger generation, people my age and younger, looking for exactly that, hungry for a better quality of story. You know, having grown up in the U.S. in the public school system, I can just speak from my experience, but we weren't offered good stories, and we weren't offered stories that reflect the times we're growing up in. You know,
Exactly.
young people deal with a lot of fear because of the ecological change going on. You know, all the violence and strife and poverty that we're able to see because of technologies like social media. We wear this on our shoulders, and we're keen for stories that can validate some of our concerns.
Real time.
Yeah, so even a thriller like this one, you know, can be resonant and validating, and that's so valuable. I mean, I think that's the real value of art. Every piece of art, and I'm curious to hear your opinions on this, every piece of art that I have loved has always felt like something I almost already knew. It's resonated with me as if I already loved it before I saw it. And I think that's the validating impetus and value of artwork working on us, right? It's making you feel not alone in the world, and that's the kind of space that I want to be creating for, is so that people feel understood even by some stranger artists off in the universe elsewhere.
And I think too that speaks to perhaps why, if you go back to the upper room, you know, way back when the artists of the day were just, you know, in today's language, just a bunch of unemployed people who were trying to make it the starving artists. To me, if you're speaking to the Ray Bankers and the Gordon Solomons and the Randy Shalettes and the like, they're your contemporaries. You can relate to them 1,000 years from now. They may be, you know, the Rembrandts and the like of, right? But value them now. So, but therefore, you chime in. You know, they say you should never, you know, ask a woman her age. Never say anything about a man. So, with that, Jack, you just reference, you know, your age. So the people understand. You know, you talk about young people.
Yeah, I'm 28 years old. I'm
28.
Yeah, I guess I'm called a millennial, right? But I've been inspired so much by even younger generation that is just so astute and worldly in the knowledge they're able to soak up.
And the reason why I ask, I know your age or has been shared with me and published. I wanted to say that, to ask those of us who are not 28 to reflect that because of the technology of today, the ability to learn about history, but somehow we are so connected to it that we dismiss the impact. And you just share that our young people today, in my view, two things are happening simultaneously. They're so bombarded by so much that they don't even know it's impacting we as their parents, their teachers, and even their contemporaries don't even understand what that is doing to them mentally and physically. But secondly, the historical things. We're talking about 1968, 1975. For some people, yesterday was a century, right? Yet, for some of us, we can recall things, you know, of 2 and 3 centuries ago. Not biblical things, just historical things. But something from the 50s that our grandparents, that's ancient. So, with that in mind, when we come back from this break, from the historical perspective, the authenticity, the accuracy, and perhaps the need, unless you disagree with that word, to ensure that works like this are preserved and then presented to the populace so that they can appreciate that this isn't just a story. This is something that they need to respect, remember, and constantly relate, you know, for future generations. Can we talk about that?
Absolutely.
All right. We're going to take a few minutes, you know. We may end at 2, we may not. But you won't know until you join us. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
From boat days to beach gatherings, Leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway box to go with the option of 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips for all occasions and celebrations. Let Subway focus on the food so you can focus on the fun. Visit subway.ky for catering options. Subway. Eat fresh.
Freedom, Cayman Brack. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
Hey, is your phone slow, overheating, and dropping important calls? Don't fret. This summer, it's time to flip out with Digicel. Introducing the all-new Samsung Flip 4 with its sleek design and cutting-edge features. You'll flip into the summer in style and confidence. This summer, you can grab the all-new Samsung Flip 4, all just for $145. Flip into the summer with Digicel. Visit a Digicel store near you and grab the all-new Samsung Flip 4 and the amazing 7-day Prime Ultra plan today.
You know, as a little girl, I dreamt of traveling to faraway places and foreign lands. I tell you what though, no more dreaming. This summer, I going flying with Cayman Airways. How blessed are we in the Cayman Islands to have a very own national airline? Girl, you can fly to so many international destinations without the hassle of connecting flights. On top of Jamaica, Cuba, and Honduras, you got non-stop flights from Cayman to New York, Miami, Tampa, and even Denver, Los Angeles, and now Panama. Going to be a little cafe con leche and Hollywood Squares for this old gal this summer.
Make your travel dreams come true with Cayman Airways, offering non-stop flights for non-stop adventures in Panama, LA, and many more places in between. For details and to book, call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
Did you know that in an event of a hurricane, water designated for the purposes of drinking, cooking, and bathing must be disinfected before use? Water may be disinfected by boiling or through the use of chlorine bleach. To disinfect through boiling, simply leave the water on the fire 1 minute after it begins to boil. To disinfect with bleach, add 3 ounces of chlorine bleach to every 1,000 gallons of water. If you're not able to smell the bleach in the water after 30 minutes, then add half of the amount of bleach that was added during the initial application. Recheck the water after 15 minutes to ensure there is residual bleach smell. A residual bleach smell is an indicator that the water has been properly disinfected. For more hurricane food safety tips, visit the DEH website, www.gov.ky/DEH.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And as we talk about Far Tortuga, a novel by Peter Matthieson from Awesome Productions, awesome fella himself, Badir and joined filmmaker, perhaps?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, why not? Jack Evans. I like the fact that you may have acquainted or reacquainted someone, not just with the text and the things, but with some words, and the notion that as we try not to reinterpret history and represent it, but to accurately and authentically, give it a new audience in a way that we look at. And it may, I'm mindful because as conscious as I am aware that many of the characters potentially that the novel is based on with the voyages probably have this story much more intimately in their minds than they may wish to, and may evoke within them certain memories, good or bad. But there's a love and a respect that I have for my country and our people, our history. The idea that, my own father, very young boy, just barely in double digits, going to Miss Keys. To hear his contemporaries today speak about him, his heroics, and physical strength and presence of mind. But there, can you imagine swimming, off the mosquito keys with bull sharks and hammerheads around you. You know, someone falls overboard and you jump in as a young boy and, you know, swim them to safety. I don't know about you, but how many of us would jump? What about you, older boy? Sorry, you shark food. I mean, but that's what they did because they loved one another. They were responsible for each other. You know, you're the adult and here's this young child. How are you treating that child? What example are you? What's happening? Perhaps some of these things, you know?
It's that kind of hardship that bonds people together,
It
right?
is, yeah.
You see it in any story of warfare or conflict, you know, or revolution or political distress or repression.
Yeah.
You know, you see an incredible bonding force. It could be called the only positive effect of harsh situations like that. But here you also have the life-driving importance of feeding one's family. You know, that's your life world. It doesn't get simpler than that or more important either. And it's in that space that you can learn. You know, you can learn knowledge of the soul.
Yeah.
Right.
And it speaks to our resolve. I mean, we can talk to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and we understand that if you don't have food and shelter, you're not going to be concerned with anything great philosophical. The more leisure that you have and luxury, you might be able to be pensive. But as a country, how much of Mr. Andrew Power's sort of heroic efforts, right, are even being not just recalled, but being reminded to our people, you know, to be able to swim, you know, all that time.
Yeah. How much of that did you grow up with?
Yeah, like I said earlier, I feel like, you know, pretty removed from that.
Yeah.
And for whatever reasons, and you know, but just again, that's one of the beautiful things about this novel. Can I imagine being out there in the Mosquito Keys, dealing with the sharks? Yeah, because I've read this novel, and I have this account of these Caymanians out there and what they're seeing. What they're describing. It's very visual and vivid, and you know, being sort of on the edge of the world out there, and you know, confronting life, confronting God, confronting nature, and you know, having the ramifications that it has on your soul. So you know, there are a swath of Caymanians who are removed from that.
Yeah.
And I think this film is an opportunity to bring us back into it.
All right. So, Jack, as you jump in and we talk about the importance of the seafaring heritage and turtling, a point you made earlier, you know, you said you're an outsider, and to me, some was, not just in Cayman, but globally, will see the outsider as the person who's invading as opposed to how I see it. You have a lens to see something through that you wouldn't otherwise have. So with that in mind, is it to Badir's point that we need now to be reminded of this, have it recorded in a way so it can be replayed, so as a people we understand that these are valiant efforts. These are not just acts of, you know, heroics. This is something that served more than a rite of passage. It's not just about subsistence and survival. It's about a people with a innate sense of resilience and resolve and intelligence.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing that both of you were touching on when you mentioned how it's sort of a luxury to be able to philosophize. I would cast it in a different way, more like while you're out there meeting your basic needs, you learn what the world is really made of, right? You're inspecting the seams of the world where different experiences join, right? I love the way this book, and I'm determined to make the film accordingly, I love the way the book looks into the eye of the turtle, and it's constantly wondering this great question that we've always lived with as a species, is what is that animal different from us thinking? How is it looking back at me? That's it. You can only access the true answer of that right now with the technology that we've got through poetry. Poetry remains the most advanced technology for relating to other species, you know, and by that I mean the poetics of all art forms.
Exactly.
And this kind of emotional relation, it's an old kind of animism that has never really left the human species, you know. And then the god and the gods that different people end up believing in, you know, these are all influenced, these are all drawn from experience of the world in its creation, you know, of this land and seascape that we interact with. So,
and then there's a body of knowledge, right? I mean, we talk about technology today, and some of us would get lost leaving our car park, going to the supermarket if it wasn't for GPS. Here are people not just a century ago, but I'm convinced centuries, who could navigate celestially, who understood with just a stick and something else how to get safely from where they left to where they're going and return.
Yeah.
Who understood from the way the movement of the waves to the shifting of the clouds, impending weather, and who were able to weather the storm in the midst of the storm in a way that perhaps contributed to their survival. And but for that knowledge, they would have perished.
Yeah. And
right?
I mean, it's like we might not need to be able to celestially navigate to get to the grocery store right now.
Yeah.
But wouldn't you rather be able to, right? Wouldn't you rather get your knowledge from something, a relationship you're actually having with literally a celestial being? How gorgeous and educating and moving that is, and there's all this space in between for reflection. So philosophizing is not a luxury of the civilized world, it's very much the domain of people close to the ground, of the working class.
As we close,
Jack's flattening the Maslow's hierarchy,
yes,
right? So that it all exists in that bottom layer. Very interesting.
Some kind of circle.
Yeah. And as we close our discussion, I come back to your initial point and maybe asking us, if we were to not be disrespectful, that we looked at them and we said, they only had a primary school education, so therefore they were much more intelligent and deserving of our respect than we actually realize that we are, given to them. All right. I think we can take one call. Okay, let's do that. Hey, welcome. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Sterling. Good afternoon to you guys as well. Dwayne Ebanks here. Hope all is well.
All is well, man. It's great to hear you, man. I shall be calling you again later. Is that time again, huh?
Yeah, that time again. Quick one. I know we're talking a bit about heritage, and we've got a few seconds before the news come on.
Yeah, man.
Talking about navigating our local seamen here that we call seamen that now doing, these sort of tours, stainless city tours and all that. When you go and check, most of these guys are there, their navigating skills are pretty well too, and I'm quite sure they can go beyond the reef and back with no problem.
Exactly.
So it shows that our heritage is still here. But to bring a little spotlight, I know they were talking just a minute ago about one of our heroes, as I consider him, Andrew Curry, right? And about how he had swam so far and what could have created such endurance, etc. I think it was in 2012, his grandson, which happens to be Mr. Chris Christian, himself, and we all put a float together for the West Bay Heritage Day, which was based on national heroes, which was Andrew Curry, and just to finish off quickly, I hope when they do make, these movies based on these individuals and so forth, taking clips from our history or whatever, that they look a bit into the individual before these things occur, to talk about where he came from, who his family was, because when you look back at a lot of our seamen, they left huge amounts of land behind, and when they came back from sea, things had changed, like back then they were land rich, and they thought they were going to come back cash rich too, but they came back, cash rich, and now land poor. But hopefully it takes a deeper look at who they were before that incident happened to spotlight a bit on those individuals, But I'll stop there, but like I said, it was good to hear to talk about the history and the Caymanian heritage,
All right, Dom, thanks, man. And if I call as I plan to and you answer, then I get a chance to chat with you again.
Yeah, for sure.
Talk to you soon, man.
Thank you. God's what I mean.
Yeah, man, brother. Yeah, man.
Actually, I mean, just to answer his question, when you read the novel and the script, these guys talk a lot about that.
Yeah.
About their land holdings back home and what's changing. So that the research that went into that book is pretty amazing. So there's a lot of talk about that, Dominic. You'd be very surprised. And they're all talking about their piece of land and what that means and how it's going up in value or going down in value or what they thought was, a rich piece of land or not. And yeah, it's a great novel. I'm very excited to be working on this.
And as I ask Jack for his final thoughts, we talking about a history that for some we were anxious to celebrate a quincentennial, but when we look at it, it's still a new nation, and 1968 was yesterday. I got siblings that were born prior to that, right? But they wasn't far off. So this is today, but yet for a people, it's unknown, and yet deliberately or consciously, whether social engineering or otherwise, it's been decimated and displaced, and people are not understanding what's being lost. So I know you were off to good things, but Jack, final thoughts, my friend?
Yeah, this is the moment for it, right? Because there's still a few people in their 80s and 90s who are out there on the Mosquito Keys, right? So this is the moment where we can be interviewing them, where we can be talking with them, getting their eyes on the project, and I want them to see the end of this movie. You know, more than anything. That's why now is the time to do it. So if all keeps going well, you know, I've been working on this personally for 3 years. I've been thinking about it for, I guess, 15 years, right? But now's the moment where we're seeking to raise the funds, get the cast and crew attachments together, hopefully bring this film as much as possible to Cayman, right, to get to shooting it here. That will depend on the influence we're able to garner from certain investors and fundraising and things like that, and shoot this thing next year so that we can all be watching it in 2025, right, and be
ambitious,
reading the book. And
you're ambitious.
It takes it. It requires it, huh?
I encourage you, but I appreciate the fact that he said mosquito. I want to get my friend to say the same thing. I'll work on that. But thank you both, and if I can publicly and with utmost love, the agape love and respect, commend you for it, but ask you to continue the endeavor to ensure the authenticity and accuracy. And those of us who may have a little bit more insight into the story, because intimately we're familiar with it, whereas, you know, members of our family, to look at it and realize what it is. You know, perhaps when, you know, Caesar was being, you know, closing his eyes at his last minutes, he looked over his friend. As we understand history, maybe the people of the day looked at and said, "Man, you did that. What's wrong with you?" But it doesn't change what happened, right? So let us do that.
Yeah, and if thank you for that. We'll carry it on. And if any of the listeners are carrying around that insight, just give us a shout. You can track us down at www.anotherworldentire.com. Or find our Instagram account of the same name and message us, and get in touch anyway, because we need that insight, and it's important for us all to keep telling our stories.
And you can also meet us at Cayman Cabana tomorrow night at 9:30 p.m.
Yeah.
This is after the Baker shows at the cinema, which is a movie that was filmed here as well. So after that, we'll head down to Cabana, so please come out.
But there are be awesome productions. We're going to see Wavelength. Going to see Cabana 9:30 tomorrow evening, man. Listen, always a pleasure. Thanks for, you know, being you. Thanks for encouraging us, and thanks for having that diligence and resolve.
You too. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, when we come back, let's move open line. I can see if I can get my camera back across the mirror to share with me, man, that voice that she has when she plays her music. Well, maybe she'll say it loudly on here on Talk Today. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom. Today's biggest news.
With your latest headlines, I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins. The Forensics Science Laboratory at the Georgetown Hospital is closed for the remainder of the day. The HSA apologizes for the inconvenience to its patients. In international news, amid blistering heat waves, July is virtually certain to be the world's warmest month on record, say scientists. So hot has the month been to date that researchers are confident the 2019 record will be broken, even with several days to go. UN Chief Antonio Guterres says the planet is entering an era of global boiling. Scientists agree the extra heat is mainly linked to fossil fuel use. Some experts believe that July might well be the warmest month in the past 120,000 years. 3 members of a Colorado family died while attempting to live off the grid in the Rocky Mountains, family members and investigators say. The emaciated remains of sisters Christine and Rebecca Vance and the latter's 14-year-old son were found in a remote campsite this month. On Tuesday, a coroner ruled that they probably died from starvation or exposure during the cold winter. It appears that the group began camping last summer and died over the winter. The group, including the sisters who were in their 40s, had no outdoor survival experience and had watched online videos to learn about how to survive in Colorado's rugged backcountry. These are your headlines. I'm Felicia Rankin-Solins.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom. Today's biggest news.
You know you've dreamed of that Mercedes, the smooth leather, the style, luxury that feels so good.
Ooh la la. With the prestigious 2023 Mercedes-Benz GLA 200 up for grabs in this year's Lions Club of Grand Cayman Benzorama fundraiser. This is your chance to make that dream come true. Tickets are $25 for one, 3 for $65, or 5 for $100. Benzorama fundraiser tickets are available with Lions Club members and various sales outlets. The Lions Club of Grand Cayman Benzorama fundraiser supports numerous community initiatives, includes site screening, Christmas delivery, restoration, and social services.
89.9 Radio Cayman helps you to weather the storm during this hurricane season.
One of the most crucial elements of hurricane preparedness is storm awareness. During the season, it is of utmost importance to pay attention to the latest local weather forecast, as hurricanes do not suddenly form or strike. There are various methods of advanced notification. Utilizing such may be the difference between a favorable outcome and disaster. Both television and radio serve as excellent mediums with up-to-the-minute storm path information in the wake of a hurricane. Another method of tracking a hurricane may be only arm's length away. Your smartphone or tablet can be your most valuable tool before, during, and after a storm, providing countless numbers of apps with crucial hurricane information. Many apps allow you to track storms with moving radar and satellite imagery, plus offer alerts, current conditions, forecasts, advisories, and even video.
This hurricane preparedness tip was brought to you by your community radio station, Radio Cayman 89.9 FM.
It's a 24-karat summer with Digicel. In honor of our first truly COVID-free summer, Digicel is giving away $24,000. Be one of 10 to win $2,400 this July. For a chance to win, all you have to do is switch to Digicel, activate a Prime bundle, or simply pay your bill on time. It's that easy. It takes 2 minutes to get $2,400 richer. Make the choice to win today and visit a Digicel store near you.
You know, as a little girl, I dreamt of traveling to faraway places and foreign lands. I tell you what though, no more dreaming. This summer, I going flying with Cayman Airways. How blessed are we in the Cayman Islands to have a very own national airline? Girl, you can fly to so many international destinations without the hassle of connecting flights. On top of Jamaica, Cuba, and Honduras, you got non-stop flights from Cayman to New York, Miami, Tampa, and even Denver, Los Angeles, and now Panama. Going to be a little cafe con leche and Hollywood Squares for this old girl this summer.
Make your travel dreams come true with Cayman Airways, offering non-stop flights for non-stop adventures in Panama, LA, and many more places in between. For details and to book, call 949-2311, contact a travel agent, or visit CaymanAirways.com.
All aboard the Pizza Boat! Cayman's newest pizzeria. Birthday parties, office luncheons, summer camps, game night. Whatever your occasion, bring the fun with Pizza Boat. A Cayman twist to pizza. Bringing fusion ingredients from all over the globe to give you locally inspired fresh pizzas all day, every day. What's more, now you can enjoy a boat-shaped pizza with toppings of your choice. It's Pizza Boat. Pizza Boat, now open in Queens Court on West Bay Road. Pick up or delivery 949-0000 or order online www.pizzaboat.ky. Pizza Boat. Experience the ultimate pizza voyage.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And we got 20 minutes or thereabouts. I try not to go beyond the 2:30 hour for many reasons. One, I have absolute appreciation and respect for time. My father always instilled in us a sense of timeliness, and he inculcated that ethos in such a way that by example, he said, time waits for no man. No matter your wealth, you can't buy a second. Maybe if the word nanosecond was a part of our vocabulary, then we might have used it. And I say that to say that when I hear people say, okay, man, time, I automatically know, in my mind, that must mean that you could be on time, which means early. And not just the likes of Captain Paul and Mr. Loxley and the others, because of their generation, as very much, exemplified in my own father. But it's us. And when we allow, I say that to emphasize the importance of the discussion we just had about Far Tortuga. If you haven't read the book, if you know of it and you've read it in the past, you can. It's probably online somewhere through one of those, outlets that you can order. Well, you can call. The phone lines are available. We're taking your calls still. I will talk to you. But it's about, an account that, as fictionalized as it may be presented, there is sufficient research, and those who know that he was here on island. He did a lot of work. He interviewed, and I think as Jack Evans shared with Badir that, he published his piece for his employer, but he saved a lot of it for what it eventually became, his novel Far Tortuga. So looking forward to potentially what may be, a film, certainly one. So as we go to the phones, a quick reminder: 9:30 tomorrow evening, p.m. 9:30 tomorrow evening at Cayman Cabana. Join Badir and the crew as they talk about the book and look for potential talent. All right, let's take this call. Hey, welcome. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Sterling.
Hey, how are you?
I am sad. I got some bad news for you.
Oh.
I can't have some more chocolates.
You can't? Why?
I can't.
Well, I tell you what.
Caffeine and anxiety don't work.
Really? Huh.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was feeling kind of away earlier, and for those who don't know what that phrase means, actually, you came on here, buddy. Everybody should have one. And they can interpret it how they want. But here, I had my breakfast, thank God, and I had a great company. And then after, I got my piece of chocolate cake, and boy, that was decadent. But I had to rush it, I like the savor and flavor, and as I indulge in my dark chocolate. Yeah. Ay.
Cuban style.
What is it? Wee, what a heat.
What a heat.
Yeah, man.
I'm glad you mentioned the heat. Sterling, I was talking about the garbage yesterday. I think it was on the garbage truck.
Uh-huh.
That garbage truck came through here this morning, 2:38. I tell you, that wake me up. I was so pleased.
Mm-hmm.
Took me a while to go back to sleep. I greatly appreciate them, but man, they need to change the time a little bit, man. It's ridiculous.
Well,
time, and it's been going on now from, I think, from the other government. I think it was, don't quote me on this kind of thing. Who was in charge of garbage? I think it was the guy from Bordentown. I don't know what his name is right now, but anyhow, apparently they haven't changed it. I know this is the 4 we can say that Cayman is hot, the whole world is hot. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
But really and truly, they got to do a little better than that, because people just really get me a real good sleep then to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get dressed to go to work. And I'm quite sure I wouldn't mention another district, because then I have a girlfriend. She wants to get up around 4:30 to get down Georgetown to beat the traffic, which is tough, but it is what it is. But 2:38 in the morning, man, come on.
Mm-hmm.
Me want a garbage pickup, but please see if we can do something about the time. And what is a place called environmental health, all right?
Right, yeah. I mean, I go ahead, sorry. I was going to share something with you, but I will.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I do recognize what you share. I respect it. And I'm just thinking that given the 100,000 that we're, knocking on now, so that increased population and development, the demands on them, all right, may mean that for them, they have to start their work day a lot earlier in order, I guess, in their scheduling, not to affect the traffic so much, but also to be able to meet the demands that we're placing them as this, huge population,
I understand, but to beat the traffic, Sterling, school is closed. I've been coming on at 7 o'clock morning to go to some therapy appointments and stuff. And let me tell you something. The traffic, much better, when school is out and when it's in and out now, because of more cars have accumulated, more people have accumulated this island.
Yeah.
And mentioning about population, I mean, if we're going to get this population to 100,000 and we're going to do garbage once a week for us, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Those guys will be working 48 hours a day, not 24.
But this is it, that increase.
All that garbage.
Yeah. You know, the demands. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you know, I went up to the doctor this morning to send a prescription down to the pharmacy. And they asked me if I'm going to wait on. I said, yes, I'm going to run an errand and come back. And just going to be ready in 45 minutes. I went back after an hour or so. Went inside the building, and I was there for a while. And it came in and said, oh, you know, your doctor recommend this dose, and we don't have it. We have this dose. And I said, well, the doctor's upstairs. Could you all notify them? Well, we was going to. But I said, I told him I'll be back. The consultation was going to take 45 minutes, and I came back after an hour. And I said, you all have my phone number. You know, I could have came home. You know what I mean? So they got out in town waiting to get the prescription and come to find out that it's the one that she wanted that it didn't have in the dosage. But she went upstairs in the building there where the pharmacist is at, and all those were going to contact me or her, but it didn't get to it. Let me tell you about that pharmacy. That pharmacy down on Smith Road, the beautiful little pharmacy, but they need some speed and some staff in that place. Because 99.9% my research goes in on WhatsApp. And when you got to go there for that, if they don't go, sometimes 10 people sitting there waiting, and one person by the window to call those 10 persons there. And they got different departments on that board there, whatever the board is called, so forgive me, that you'll be called under. And that doesn't speed you up no faster than the judge just sitting in and sitting first come, first serve. You leave that alone. And I just want to say that Dr. Phillips is partly retired from the dental department at Georgetown. Believe me, Sterling, he's going to be well missed. That was my dentist. He's going to be well missed. He was one hell of a dentist. He didn't play. He knew what he was doing. And he's going to be well missed. So I just wish him good retirement, and hope he changes his mind, come out work part-time, and I can get on his appointment list. Sterling, talking about the heat. I want to go to this first. You know, you pass a lot of jobs on the road. It has no sign stating what they're building, but they're going to have a sign up saying no jobs available, or no jobs.
Yeah.
Something about no jobs.
No hiring on site.
No hiring on site.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, you know, years ago, Sterling, these guys came up and walking on a job and asked for a job, and they went in work that day and work on top of it until the building is finished. You understand? And they're putting these buildings up and has nothing else stating what's the name of the building.
Yeah.
They got something going on right there by credit union. It is a story. The way that they set up to do their work on that location. What they're going to do, I don't know. But it is a story. And whoever's in charge of MP downtown Georgetown, they need to go and tell them if they can fix that a bit better or put some paint on those containers to make them a little bit more attractive. It's a story.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is practically sitting on the edge of the road, of our main road.
Yeah.
You ready for me to go?
Yeah. You know, I looked up at Miss Susan and said, man, you know what you're doing. Yeah, we have that final break to take, but we only ready when you are. So you have more you want to share with us, or if not?
One more thing.
Well, you want to do it quickly, or you want to? Yeah.
No, I want to say it quickly, and then you can laugh and then after hang up. You know, it's hot, and school going to be opening quicker than we expect, and in a couple of weeks school will be open. I don't know what the education department has in plan, especially for our primary school children. What's going on right now. I was wondering if there was any way they could consider a nice hat for these kids to wear to school when they have to go outside in recess, or if they're playing a nice, one of those that kind of like hang around your head, but it's very protective and very visible. You can still see where you're going and what you're doing. And with a drawstring in it, that just push it off the head and it can hang in the back of the neck. When they said
Yeah.
So I wish that we could consider doing some hats for our children and let the parents purchase them. We may have some parents who may get uniforms from government, but the hat will have to be paid for. We cannot expect government to give us everything.
Indeed.
And I feel that these kids should have some sort of type of hat to go back to school with and allowed to drink so much water during the time that they're in school.
Right. Well, thank you for that. Good suggestions. And as we go into the break, we know a number of schools have added a hat, to their uniform. All right. We're going to pause, and when we come back, we'll invite you to share. Stay tuned.
Wow, looks good. What is that?
Chicken chair.
What did you just say to me?
Chicken chair.
I am not a chicken.
Whoa! I said chicken share. It's from KFC. Bucket of 12 hot wings, 6 pieces of chicken, or 8 tenders. KFC chicken share. Just $12 each.
Oh.
Want some chicken, tenders, or hot wings?
You're sharing your chicken share with me?
The new chicken share from KFC. Just $12 each. And it's finger-licking good. Dine at KFC Baytown Plaza, KFC Shedden Road, or KFC at the Strand.
Take some advice from your Aunt Angie. If you want to go scuba diving on your vacation, don't bedazzle your wetsuit. And you think you look great, but what you don't realize is that you look like a shiny, scaly fish. And it won't take long for a shark to notice you. Next thing you know, you're busting out every karate move you got. But if you're smart, you'll have CG medical insurance and get airlifted out to the closest hospital.
Get coverage for emergency evacuations. CG Britgay. Good like that. All benefits are subject to policy provisions, including eligibility at the time of service.
The Commission for Standards in Public Life reminds all persons subject to the Standards in Public Life Act that they are required to submit their annual declarations by no later than Sunday, the 30th of July.
To determine if you are required under the Act to submit a declaration, visit www.standardsinpubliclifecommission.ky/register of interest.
Again, the deadline for submissions of declarations to the Register of Interest via the online portal in accordance with the Standards in Public Life Act is Sunday, the 30th of July.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And it is, just on the, 7 minutes of our program left for today. And as I was sharing to you prior, respectful of time, understanding that, as the song says, time keeps on ticking into the future, all right? And you may look at it and not respect and recognize that time waits for no one, no man. And even though we may say the lady can take her sweet time to get ready, 8 o'clock will be 9 o'clock, it'll be 10 o'clock, whether she's ready or not, to go on the town for the evening or to come down for breakfast or however that may be. And our people had a healthy respect for time, and unfortunately, in the unfolding world that we are in, we seem to have forgotten that. I appreciate the excellent work of Ray Banker. Remember the See What I Was Saying show that we used to have, and he reminded us of our seafarers, our incredible history, the work that we did, with Flagler and the Keys in building the railroad. And come Christmas time, that they would leave and they would come back on their catboats, spend the Christmas here, and then they would return, early in the new year and continue work. And their ability to work with the sandflies and in the swamp and the like, it shows within them an amazing work ethic. And that is the people that I know. It's the example that I want to follow because it's embodied and epitomized in my own parents, mother and father. And it is time that as a people that we are willing to celebrate and to not to allow ourselves to be subjugated to the margins, relegated to the rims of history where, we are disrespected. But unfortunately, if you don't know who you are, what you are, then perhaps anything will suffice. As I said earlier, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And worse, when you get there, you may have no clue where you are. The country song says, if you're not willing to stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And the stand doesn't have to be a stand with violence. It can still be one with civility. It is the educated, intellectual individual who will speak the loudest, or should, because they have the knowledge, the wisdom, and the understanding. But oftentimes we allow others to disparage and discredit, to dismiss and to divide, simply because they are disgusted with the people who are willing, to no longer stand for honesty and integrity. So maybe that time has come when we look at where we are in human history and ask, as John Kennedy, many may say he was not a great man, others like me would probably differ, but he said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And his brother Robert, reminded us, and something that he repeated, that if not now, when? If not me, who? And if we look back to our discussion about Far Tortuga, as both Jack and Badir, we shared incredible people with incredible intelligence, with a resolve and a resilience. We saw it, for a short time after Hurricane Ivan. We see it quietly, unfortunately, on a daily basis in our lives, with the way we draw alongside each other. But for some reason, we have become, unwilling to celebrate it publicly once again. That love, that agape love that we have for one another, that we should have for one another, that we draw alongside each other, not just in times of tragedy and sickness, illness, and disease, but that we are there. It's become frustrating when I hear about this village mentality. It takes a village to raise. We've imported it and somehow incorporated it into our diction without understanding, by example, what it means. But we also, for somehow, look and see in our people something that, has been for too long, hidden under the bushel. Are people who have courage, people who have a significant level of love, but have become less than courageous in showcasing and celebrating who we are. I will lead us with you on a daily basis for those individuals who have come from afar, who have born and bred in other lands and have come to make Cayman their home. Through their lens, I get to see Cayman with a renewed love and respect, and have come to admire and appreciate why I love and respect it even more, because they remind us of what a wonderful place this is. But unless you are blind, willfully blind to what is transpiring, or unless you have deliberately closed your ears and are willing to hear, not only see, but hear what is happening. If we listen to those people, whether they've been here for 10 years or now, they're enjoying their grandchildren, or perhaps they've only been here a short time, they will tell us that what we have here is a beautiful thing and is what has attracted them to come and to remain. Not about the wealth and the amount of money they can make, but the safety and the security, the stability and the civility, the political, the economic, and the social. And unfortunately, it's being quickly eroded, and the collective we are responsible for that. I believe Billy Joel wasn't just termed, the great storyteller for no reason. And one of his songs has some lyrics that talk about, woe be unto us if we are the reason for their unanswered prayers, as he talks about, their future generations being able to realize their dreams. Our parents sacrifice significantly as they serve the interests of their country. They may do so we can make better. They were willing to do without so we could have. They were prepared to look at what was and forego the immediate gratification and many times to consciously do without so that they could educate their children. That's the us of today. Are we doing the same? Are we looking at our brother and say, come, let me help you lay the blocks and paint your house? Or are we castigating him and say, look at what he's doing, who do you think he is? And by the same token, have we extended the red carpet, whether through concession or otherwise, to the bigot and all the other, despots that have come to our shores? A friend call them the carpetbaggers, right? Now, that may hurt and that may be disrespectful to say, but we know they exist, and sometimes they are us, but are we them? And then so saying and asking, are we prepared to ensure that people accept responsibilities for their actions, are held accountable for their endeavors, and are we looking at them and understanding that their actions put us all at risk? Because if you ever been in a space, in a place where entering that space required, a certain level of clearance, and you can look that in different ways, and in there your safety is dependent on the gates in which you came through, as is your exit, so that you can get to the next space. Or have you been to a space where you're the only one there and you are as safe as you are in your own sanctuary, because it is a great place? Cayman once was that place, but now we're seeing through crime and the attacks on the person as well as the invasion of premises, that safety, that personal safety, is being threatened, not once and then again, but almost on a daily basis. You close your eyes to it, and one day you'll find that the country in which you live is almost akin to a war zone. Not because your movements are being sort of monitored and restricted, but because the people that are moving about no longer value life, limb, nor property, nor liberty. So my friends, if you're not willing to do what needs to be done to ensure that as a people we enjoy that safety, that we see the promise, right, of success, the financial success, the personal success, the ability to make lots and lots of money if that's your dream, but also to be able to enjoy it. And if you don't see the imposition of certain things, not just by those who come from afar, but those who have been here for a long time, who've come far from our values. And maybe it's us believing that in order to ensure that we get ahead or maintain that advantage, we better be like that. Well, it may sound naive. I appreciate Miss Susan giving me a few extra minutes so that we can make some necessary adjustments. And if you will do two things, draw me alongside and guide me so that my actions and my words align with a strong sense of ethos and integrity and a value system that encourages and nurtures, but also is accountable. But also you bring alongside so that together our children can play safely in their backyards as they can in the streets. Right, not with passing cars and the like, but the figurative streets. That they can go to the schools and be educated not just in the reading and the writing and the arithmetic, but in norms and values and a presence of mind that they see the importance. Now, our very young seem to have that, but as they go through the system, what happens? That they become divided. What happens? That they, see something and they believe that because it looks like this, therefore it must be that. And that's not always a good reflection. Maybe that's on us. As I said, Billy Joel said, woe be unto us, if we are the reason for their unanswered prayers. Are we ready to go, Miss Sue? Well, tomorrow is Friday. We're nearing the 7th month of this calendar as we look at it. But it being Friday, please join Mr. Art for the record. Excellent commentary and discussion, great education and information. And then come back for Talk Today. We have two wonderful people again joining us. Mr. Philip Richter will be one of them. He'll come on board and we'll have a chat and we'll talk about a much And then we'll go into the weekend inspired and encouraged, feeling that we can indeed, face the day. Well, not just with a smile, but with a purposefulness. Until tomorrow, my friends, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. And Cayman Airways. Call them on 949-2311 to book your nonstop flights to Los Angeles and Panama. And Digicel, Cayman's bigger, better network.
Is where tradition never dies. This